Welcome to the Magnum Rewatch podcast. My name is Graham.
And I'm Kathleen.
We're from LoadingReadyRun.com, where we make videos and podcasts and
generally
mischief.
force around on the internet, stream.
Indeed.
But today
we're here to take you into the world of Magnum PI, private investigator.
He's a Hawaiian man with a Hawaiian plan.
Is he actually from Hawaii?
No, he's not. He's from the mainland. I don't know why I said that.
Well, he still has a Hawaiian plan.
Yeah, to solve some crimes.
Yeah.
And get paid for it.
Exactly. Well, hopefully.
That's the underlying...
It's a persistent problem he has.
Yes.
Chronically underpaid is Magnum.
It's like the Cowboy Bebop phenomenon, right? They're always broke. Makes them relatable, I guess.
Well, the problem is that there's debt, and then he solves a case and gets enough money to pay off the debt, but then he's immediately at zero again and starts accruing more debt.
That's like the never-ending cycle of, poverty, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But on the bright side, Magnum has access to a Ferrari.
And friends, which is helpful. This episode 15, Don't Say Goodbye, opens with Magnum going for a swim.
As he is wont to do, it is his daily routine.
It's an important part of his routine.
It's how he keeps that bod in such great shape.
No kidding.
Swimming's a good workout.
And he, of course, is interrupted by Higgins,
who is mad salty,
screaming at him from the beach, and very upset that Magnum's telephone has been disconnected.
And Magnum's like, what?
He's like, I paid that bill. And Higgins is like, well, no, you didn't, because they disconnected the phone, and how dare you? And Magnum's like, all right, I'm pretty sure I paid it, but whatever. But why do you care if my phone's been disconnected? And Higgins says, well, because you give everyone Robin Masters' line, and I've been your flipping answering machine service.
Yeah, and Higgins is mad salty. I already said he was mad salty, but I'm going to repeat it to emphasize how irritated he is at Magnum.
They do live by the ocean.
He's exposed to a higher dose of salt than, say, you or me might be. But anyhow, he's mad at Magnum because he thinks some floozy is phoning.
Because the woman who has phoned most recently and is still on the line said something akin to tell Magnum to get that sweet bod of his up here so I can breathe heavy down the phone or something.
Yeah. That's, if not exactly, it's the gist of it.
Yeah, and Magnum's like, oh, that sounds like Agatha. And Higgins is like, I don't want to know who these women are that you're banging. I don't care. Don't tell me these things.
Magnum sort of smirks at him, goes up, takes the phone call, and we see the licentious lady on the other end of the phone is...
Agatha Kimble, a 70-year-old blind woman.
Yeah.
She does still flirt with him, though. She's like, oh, if you were 20 years older or I were 20 years younger, or both.
Yeah. I like how she's like, I'm not that picky.
Yeah.
Right?
However this has to work.
Hey, just because you're 70 and blind doesn't mean you're out of commission.
I want to actually talk about this actress for a second, if I could just jump in before we actually continue with the thing. Mercedes McCambridge.
Okay.
Big M, small c, big C. Mercedes McCambridge.
That's a name.
Born Carlotta Mercedes Agnes McCambridge. One of the best-known voices of radio.
Oh. Basically
of all time. She began her career in radio during the 30s, while also performing on Broadway. And her radio work, it's as long as my arm. Frankly, none of it will be useful to anyone listening because it shows that people don't know exist anymore, but episodes of Lights Out, episodes of Inner Sanctum, episodes of Gangbusters, Murder at Midnight, Screen Director's Playhouse. These are things I don't know either. I'm just listing that she had a very long radio career. And when she finally transitioned to the silver screen, she came out gangbusters. Her first movie role was All the King's Men. She played the character of Sadie Burke in All the King's Men in 1949. Won Best Supporting Actress.
In her first her first movie role?
In her first movie role.
Wow.
Yeah. She was nominated again in 1956 for a Best Supporting Actress role in the movie Giant, and is probably best known, or rather, she is not necessarily known for it, but her best known role is the voice of the child in The Exorcist.
No way!
For which she was uncredited and took Warner Brothers to court.
Good for her. Did she win?
Yes, with the help of the Screen Actors Guild, she was properly credited for her vocal work in the film.
Yay! Take that, Warner Brothers. Sorry, I'm a little cranky because all the Suicide Squad photos have started coming out, and I'm like, whoa.
And Mercedes McCambridge has 2 stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, 1 for motion pictures and 1 for television.
Wow, that's just kind of selfish. I don't even have any stars. I was in her court. Now I'm just like, the rich get richer. I'm, of course, joking.
For television, by the way, she played Kate Wells on Wire Service, a series from 1956. She was on several episodes of Rawhide, and she had guest roles on many, many episodes of different series through the years. And she is not blind,
No.
which I had to look into because something that impressed me a lot with her role of Agatha Kimble in this episode was her physical acting. She did a lot of sort of strangely exaggerated physical motions that you sometimes see from blind people. I feel a lesser actor would have just sat there and made a point of not focusing her eyes on anything.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what you get when you hire an Academy Award-winning actress. You get, actually a pretty good performance. So thumbs up for Agatha in this episode. She's great.
Yeah. And she asks Magnum to come over and help her out with something and be there in an hour. And Magnum is sort of playing up the fact that Higgins is still listening to his half of the conversation only and is sort of like, oh, well, when do you want me over there? All right, well, I'll come see you. Sure. And then on his way out, he gets one up on Higgins. He hands the phone back and says, she wants to thank you for going to get me. And Higgins is like, I don't want to talk to this floozy, blah, and hangs up the phone. And then Magnum is like, by the way, that was Agatha Kimble, as in one of the board members of the King Kamehameha Club.
Probably one of the benefactors.
Probably. He doesn't actually say what her relationship is. He just says, like King Kamehameha Club, Agatha Kimble, and then leaves. And Higgins
is sort of like visibly blanched at this point.
Yeah.
He's like, whoa.
Then we go over to Agatha's house where she's listening to her granddaughter Amy play the piano.
And Amy's doing a pretty good job of it.
Well, piano playing runs in the Kimble family.
Yes, that's what Agatha says.
That's what Agatha says. Amy's having a tough time with one particular passage, but Agatha's like, oh, whatever, you'll get it. It's fine. I'm going to go out to the garden, keep playing. I'll be able to hear you from out there. And
yeah, well, she rightly points out that piano playing runs in the family, but also you still have to practice.
Yes. And Agatha wheels herself out to the garden because she is, of course, wheelchair bound, but she has a little electric wheelchair, so that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, the small ramp that goes from the living room down to the garden is off kilter. It's not flush with the door frame, and the front wheel goes down, and she takes a tumble out of the wheelchair and hurts herself. And then we cut to Magnum arriving. When Magnum arrives, he is greeted at the door by Ted Danson.
Oh my goodness. Is this one of Ted Danson's very first roles ever?
Well, it's certainly pre-Cheers, which is where most people will know Ted Danson from. Spoilers, in case the name...
Kind of like an 80s heartthrob in his own right in Cheers, actually. But more of like a blue-collar heartthrob. Mm-hmm. I feel like Magnum was the thinking man's or woman's heartthrob.
Yeah, Ted Danson has about a dozen various guest roles, including this one, and then about a dozen or so after, until, of course, Cheers hits in 1982.
Oh, wow. Okay, so the next year he makes it big.
Yeah, and of course he's in 270 episodes of Cheers.
Wow, that show ran for a long time.
As Sam Malone.
And of course it gave us the wonderful spinoff Frasier.
It did.
There's some TV trivia for you. I don't think people know that anymore.
Well, I mean, Frasier kept going for so many years after and was such a different show.
Well, and it was set in a different city, and the thing is, people our age remember Frasier from being on TV when we were kids.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody remembers Cheers. I don't think I think I may have seen 2 episodes of that in syndication because it went off the air in the late 80s.
93.
Okay,
but
I was still pretty young.
Yeah,
right? You weren't.
It was not
Cheers.
a show for us when we were that age.
I wanted to watch Tiny Toon Adventures, not Cheers.
Of course. Following from Cheers, of course, accepting a guest appearance in an episode of Frasier. He was in the one season of a show called Inc., and then, of course, in the 129 episodes of Becker as Becker. And then he was in 14 episodes of Help Me Help You, another one-season TV series.
Okay.
He was in a whole season of Curb Your Enthusiasm as himself. Then he was in a season of Damages. He was in a season of Bored to Death. He was in a season of the TV adaptation of Fargo. And, of course, most recently, he is now the lead anchor on CSI.
Right, because he took over from Lawrence Fishburne, who took over from Gil Grissom.
William Peterson.
Sure. Look, I watched the original CSI to the point where they just have the character names to me.
Yeah, that's fair. I've actually watched almost all of CSI because I enjoy that I don't have to think about it. We did a parody video of CSI, and I like that the extent of the character development from episode to episode is so minimal that you don't have to worry about it. You can just watch them do their bullshit science and be like, great, fine, whatever. I actually enjoy it for exactly what it is. He's already been in 84 episodes.
Because he's been on the show since 2011.
I know.
This is a recent development in CSI history.
I know, but I'm like,
Let's
wait,
never
what?
do a CSI rewatch podcast. Because it'll be like, it's like a Sisyphean task. It'll never end, right?
Yeah.
It'll be like pushing that boulder up the hill, and just when we get to the top, new episodes. Oh, back down we go.
So anyway, Ted Danson, you've probably seen him on television somewhere.
Ted Danson looking kind of like wiry and young here.
He still looks wiry.
Okay.
He doesn't look young, but he's always looked wiry.
That's fair. So, but he's very like suspicious as soon as Magnum shows up.
Yeah, he's a weird guy in this. Like his character's weird, and he's suspicious of Magnum as well. He's like, "What are you doing here? Why are you here? Who called you here? What's going on?" He's like, "Well, Agatha asked me." He's like, "What? Because of the accident?" And Magnum's like, "What accident? What? I just spoke to her on the phone. What's going on?" Luckily,
Yeah,
his character, by the way, who's Stuart.
Yeah, Stuart does not want to let Magnum in.
No, but luckily for Magnum, Amy shows up,
And Amy knows Magnum as well.
and Amy's like, "Oh, Magnum, come on in,
She
say
gives
hi
him a
to
big hug.
say hi to Agatha."
Stuart looks suspicious.
Yeah. It turns out not only is Amy Agatha's granddaughter, but they were estranged.
They weren't estranged because that means like
That's true. They long
There's-
lost?
yeah, there's a voluntary separation when you talk about estrangement.
That's true.
Basically, what happened was Amy's parents were no longer talking to Agatha for one reason or another. Maybe they just fell out of touch or something like that, and then they both died. So Amy was left alone without any family. Like her dad died, and then her mom died.
Amy is the daughter of Agatha's son.
Yeah, and so then Magnum ended up helping her reconnect to Agatha like a couple years ago, and has remained sort of a family friend since then, which makes sense.
Yeah.
And this all gets explained.
So Magnum walks in and says hi to Agatha, and who's refusing to take her sedative. And Agatha asks the doctor and Amy to leave the room so that
A
she
doctor
can-
that makes house calls.
Well, she also has like a caretaker and a maid and a big house.
Yeah,
so
this
Agatha
lady seems wealthy.
Agatha's got a lot of cash lying around. So she asks Magnum to come over and sit down, asks the others to leave. Magnum kisses her on the cheek, and she, because of course she's blind, remember, she then touches his face in response to him kissing her and says, "Oh, you still have it," while she caresses his mustache. It's like, "Oh, good, I thought you'd shave it off."
He knows that mustache pulls the ladies.
Yeah.
I mean, at least the old ladies.
Yeah.
Also, like, if you're blind, that's a major identifying feature that somebody has a thick, luxurious mustache.
She has another job for Magnum. She wants to hire him for something.
Magnum's like, all right.
Someone has contacted her and said that he knows something about Amy, some sort of compromising information, and he will tell her for $25,000.
We'll tell her and no one else.
Yes, for $25,000.
And Magnum's like, holy crap, do you want me to track this guy down and like figure out what's going on? And she's like, no. I want you to meet him and give him $25,000. And Magnum's like, I don't think. And she's like, no, that's what I want you to do. And he's like, okay, well, I'll tell you what I find out. And she's like, no, I don't want to know. I want you to do this, get the information, and then forget it. Agatha is a lady who knows what she wants.
Yeah, she doesn't want anything to mess with what she has. She likes everything the way it is. And she's like, no, just give the guy his money, make him go away. Don't tell me what it is, and it'll all be fine. And he's like, I will do that for you. And she says, because I know I can trust you. And Magnum's like, okay, well, I'll do it then.
I mean, Magnum doesn't seem exactly happy about it because he doesn't think this is a great idea, but he respects Agatha enough to do her bidding.
So he heads back outside, and Stuart is checking out his Ferrari.
Kind of like closely, too, like snooping.
Yeah. And he's like,
Not
oh,
just like, nice Ferrari, like getting in there.
Yeah. He does not question whether or not Magnum should be the driver, though, which is unique from characters in this show.
That's true. I mean, but the thing is, like, Stuart doesn't really know any of these people, and look how wealthy his wife's family is.
There's people who've never met Magnum who laugh at the notion that this is his car.
Yeah, but maybe he just thinks everybody in Hawaii is rich. I get the idea that Stuart is not the brightest.
I guess, yeah.
And this, the further exchange, it kind of proves it.
Yeah, because he's like, hey, so what's you talking to my wife? What's up with that? His wife is Amy. We may not have mentioned that Amy and Stuart were married. And Magnum's like, what? No, buddy, no. And Stuart's like, well, all right then, stay away from my girl, basically. And Magnum's like, dude, I'm not a threat. Don't come at me like that.
Yeah, Magnum is like so unimpressed and so unintimidated. Like Magnum is like the opposite of intimidated. Magnum is intimidating him by being so cool about this.
He's bro-appointed. Stuart basically came at him like, hey, bro, don't talk to my girl, bro. And Magnum's like, bro, you're an idiot, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's a cool exchange. He's like, look, instead of coming back at him like, what do you mean don't talk to your girl? Why shouldn't he's just like, dude, come on.
Dude, you are so far beneath my level. Right? Like
Yeah.
but anyhow, Magnum does, once this calms Stuart down a bit, he says, so what is with these accidents that Agnes keeps having? Because there's been mentioned that this is not the first time she's had a weird, unfortunate accident.
Well, Stuart tells him that right there, and Magnum's like, what do you mean accidents? And he's like, oh, just little things, lots of little things, like, the fall earlier, and someone almost clipped her on the street, and this other thing happened, and I'm just trying to figure out what's going on. And Magnum's like, well, what do you mean? Do you think someone's doing this intentionally? Who would want to hurt Agatha? And Stuart says, well, I don't think they're necessarily connected. And Magnum's like, well, maybe, but
why else would you want to do it
why
then?
else would you want to do that? And who would stand to gain the most? And Stuart goes, oh, well, I guess Amy would. He's
very quick to throw his wife under the bus. Very fast to throw his wife under the bus. If I was in a situation like this and somebody said, well, I mean, say it's your grandmother or something like that.
Yeah.
And somebody said, well, who'd stand to benefit the most? So I'd say, well, it obviously Graham, but he wouldn't do that, right? There's no defense of Amy. He's like, well, Amy, I guess, right? It's just like...
To which Magnum then says, and who would be second most to benefit? And Stuart's like, oh, yeah, point taken.
Yeah.
By the way, this whole exchange, there's some interesting cinematography in this episode, and I'm going to talk about it a lot. Magnum's sitting in the car, so typically in a situation like this where you've got two people standing on different planes and you're doing shots back and forth, you would have the shot of Magnum with the camera tilted slightly downwards and the shot of Stuart with the camera tilted slightly upwards. You put the camera sort of in between the two people standing on different planes to get across that they're looking up and down.
Mm-hmm. And you have like the little dirty shoulder in there. And
yeah, but the shot of Stuart is
like a first-person shot.
It's a little unsettling. He's not looking into the camera. He's looking sort of over it. And I don't want to say there's a slight Dutch angle. It's hard to tell because the only background is a tree, so there's no sort of straight lines to compare. But it's this very weird... Ted Danson feels like he's looming over the camera.
Yeah, I don't know. And you can see like right up his nose.
Yeah, you can see all the way to brain.
I have no idea why they chose this camera angle. Like, I guess it's supposed to represent Magnum's POV.
I guess. I think it's meant to unsettle you, to be honest. It's either meant to be unsettling and very successful at it, or it's badly done. Like, it's either just a bad shot or it's intentional.
There's a lot of weird shots in this episode, though, so I'm going to file it under intentional.
I feel like the cinematographer was having fun with some stuff.
That weird conversation out of the way. Magnum then goes to this rendezvous point where he's gotten very specific instructions of carry the envelope in your left hand and walk down to the wall and somebody will come and meet you.
Just like the movies, he says.
Yeah, it's all very, like, ridiculous.
So a man gets out of a truck labeled Fat Jack's American Grill and walks over to him. Sort of stands there for a second. The man has sort of a thin mustache, wiry-looking guy. Just sort of stands beside Magnum. Magnum says, Do you know Agatha Kimble? The guy says, let me see the money. Magnum's like, well, give me the information first. And the guy opens his mouth and then gets shot.
Yeah, like...
3 times.
Yeah, he collapses into Magnum's arms. Magnum, like, dives behind, like, a little, like, pile of sand.
Hits the dirt.
And then, like, several more shots, like, sort of come towards the area where Magnum is, like, crouching.
And they have that great movie sniper rifle noise. The pa-tew, pa-tew.
Yeah, yeah.
Because he's looking around. He can't see anything. And then eventually the shots stop and he sees a car up on a ridge.
Oh, like hauling ass.
Yeah, like way above the beach area.
Whoever set up this meeting knew what was going on and has like set up beforehand so he could, I mean, presumably he wants to kill Magnum too, I guess.
Interestingly, this scene opened with a wide shot of the area from that ridge and then zoomed in on Magnum getting out of the Ferrari. And it's totally feasible that maybe in retrospect that was indeed a POV shot from whoever's taking these sniper shots.
Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of POV shots in this episode.
So Magnum gets up and hauls, and people start to notice there's a dead guy, but that doesn't stop Magnum jumping in the Ferrari and taking off.
Well, he's trying to track down the person who shot at him.
Oh, totally, after this other car. And
unfortunately, he loses it in traffic.
Yeah.
It's like a windy mountain road.
But not before a chase.
Yeah, there is
I want to talk about the chase.
The cinematography of the chase.
Yes.
Outcome spoiled.
Typically, when we see Magnum tearing around Hawaii, we see it from one of 2 angles. Either a wide, often helicopter shot where the camera is separate from the car, or from an angle on the hood of the car with the camera about where a hood ornament would be if this Ferrari had a hood ornament. Those shots are typically achieved by putting the vehicle on a trailer that has the camera on it as well, and then the person in the car doesn't have to drive. They do this all the time in movies for dialogue and stuff, so that the people they can act without having to worry about it. But these shots, they have a cameraman doing handheld shots sitting in the passenger seat.
Yeah, it's crazy. So it like goes from like Magnum's hands on the wheel and then like pans up to his face. It's really close.
It's really dynamic.
And they run like Magnum's narration over this as he's like weaving in and out of traffic.
And
this is the first time we've seen shots like this used in like a car chase this season.
Yeah, I think it's cool. It's it sort of, like I said, it adds to the energy. It keeps things really exciting because it's like, oh, look at this. Hands, face.
I am betting that they clearly had a couple of extra days to film this episode, and the cinematographer was just like, well then, okay.
I could see that, yeah. Alternately, they had less time, and they were like, all right, F it, put a camera guy in the passenger seat and just get some shots. We don't have time to set up all these exteriors.
Yeah.
The thing is, either is likely.
Yeah, but there's some fidgety stuff that would have taken longer, I think.
Maybe. It depends. I don't actually know what their production was like, so who knows.
Yeah.
But Magnum does lose the guy in traffic, and so he can't get back to the beach in time before the cops are there, and the only other lead he has was the sign on that guy's truck. So he heads to Fat Jack's American Grill.
I'd just like to point out that at no point does anybody talk to the police and say a guy was with him who then peeled off in a Ferrari.
Right? Like, this guy collapsed, and a dude in a Hawaiian shirt with a big mustache took off, jumped in a bright red Ferrari, and floored it.
Yeah, but the police have no interest in Magnum whatsoever for this case. It was a different time.
Are we really calling different time? I feel like that's... I don't think it was a different time count. I think that's any interaction between Magnum and the police gets glossed over because he's Magnum. I think that's the magical world of television sitcoms.
But he got interviewed by the police.
Not sitcoms, sorry.
But he got interviewed by the police in Adelaide.
Yeah, and we never saw it. It was like, I talked to the police for 6 hours. Like, there was a scene change, and he's like, I had to talk to the police. They don't care. There's no outcome from it.
Maybe it's just kind of sloppy writing.
Yeah, that's fair.
So anyhow, we go to Fat Joe's.
Fat Jack's.
Fat Jack's.
And not just Jack, Fat Jack. He's very clear about this. He's like, nope, fat with an F. He's also not a small man.
No, he's like a big Hawaiian guy.
Yeah. He's talking to his younger sister, who is not a small lady, Eunice, who is bemoaning that she can't find a man to go out with her. And in walks Magnum.
And she's like, oh, how about that one? And you know what? It's interesting. She complains that she can't find a guy to go out with her because of her size. And she's not unattractive, but she's a bigger lady. And her older brother says, you know what, though? It's what's inside that counts. And just find a guy who can appreciate that. So it's like, hey, that's really nice advice. Also, I was really concerned that they'd be playing up this lady's size for laughs, and they don't.
No, they don't, which is nice.
Oh, it gets so many props from me for not doing that.
Though there is sort of, it's implied that she's not desirable, but it's not played for laughs, at least. Anyway.
I will take what I can get.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
Magnum asks Fat Jack if he knows about the guy in his truck, and he's like, oh, yeah, Freddie LaRue, obviously, because he's only the guy that would borrow my truck without asking me and not bring it back, and he's super late. And Magnum's like, well, that's because he's dead. What else can you tell me about him? And Fat Jack goes, how much does information mean to you? Because I got a sister over there who could really use a date. And Magnum's like, she's not my type. No, I'm not her type.
Yeah, she's used to the finer things.
She's used to the finer things. I'm always broke. I'm a slob. Both of which are true, to be fair.
I mean, yeah, Magnum's not lying.
No. And then the cops show up because, of course, they're following the lead of the truck. And Fat Jack's like, well, I mean, you got your choice, basically indicating his little sister or the police. And Magnum's like, I have a friend who would love Eunice. And Fat Jack's like, I thought you might.
Yes.
And so they take off.
The information is traded. And Graham's like, oh my God, who's getting suckered into this? Is it going to be TC or Rick? I'm like, it's 100% Rick, because Rick is played for comic relief.
I thought it would be TC because TC is always loudly complaining about the situations Magnum is putting him in. But you are, in retrospect, yeah, obviously it's Rick.
Also, TC pulls plenty of his own tail.
True. So with the information that Magnum now has, thanks to Fat Jack, by the way, played by local Hawaiian mainstay actor Wally Landford, who will appear a couple other times in the series as different characters, Magnum heads to Freddie LaRue's residence. It's like a shack in the woods. It's
Nasty shack.
Nasty shack. It's messy, and he starts sort of scuffling around.
He looks like exactly the type of scumbag who would try to blackmail a blind lady based on this residence.
And he finds a photo of Freddie LaRue and a woman who we don't recognize,
She has blonde hair.
and Amy Kimble. And Magnum's like,
oh.
oh. He says he feels like he got punched in the gut.
Because that means whatever is going on here is not just some crazy man, that there's legitimate information here.
And Amy knows about it.
Yeah.
Not necessarily that she knows about this blackmail thing, but that she knows what this information is.
Yeah.
So he goes back to Agatha's house.
Agatha is resting, and Amy is there alone.
She starts in with the charm real quick. She's like, hey, how's it going? Stuart's out. You want a drink? I don't want to drink alone. What do you want? Scotch on the rocks? It's cool. Hey, so let's talk about you and me. And he's like, there's what? There's no you and me. And she's
Magnum's like, nope. And she's like, well, the time just wasn't right earlier. And Magnum's like, and now that you've been married for 6 months, the time is right? And I'm like, girl, snap! That's a good retort.
It was. She's like, oh, come on, that's a low blow.
That's 100% on your level.
Yeah, it's like, what? No, you don't get married and then 6 months later go to an ex-boyfriend and be like, man, I'm just really finding all these crazy feelings about you. So
well,
Magnum,
maybe if you marry Stuart.
Maybe if you marry Stuart, yeah.
Um.
So Magnum shows her the picture, and she's like, well, I don't know what you're talking about. Hi, that was this guy. I don't know why he has a picture of me. I only met him once. This was this other girl, Carol. I used to work with her. This was from a weekend. I don't know. And you're like, you are so hiding something.
Oh my God, it's so obvious she's lying through her teeth. And then
and Magnum decides to investigate her teeth with his mouth.
Yeah, she's like, gets all flustered, and Magnum's like, mwah. And of course, as soon as this happens, I'm like, no, this is exactly when Stuart walks in.
And Stuart walks in.
And
Stuart's like, oh, you're not a threat to me, huh, bro? He doesn't actually talk like that, but that's the character.
Yeah.
By the way, big red flag. She says Stuart's out on trying to close a business deal that he's been working on.
You're fine.
Magnum says, really, what is his business? And Amy, his wife, says, oh, it's different every time I ask him.
See, this is what is contributing to this nation's frightful divorce rate, is people not asking basic questions like, what do you do for a living before you get married? You are bound to have an unpleasant surprise if you don't clear that information before you bind yourself to another person legally.
Like, people talk about, what you plan to do with your lives, whether or not you want to have kids,
how many cats you want to own, the really important things.
When you want to retire. But, stuff like,
how do you make your fucking money?
That should be very early in the relationship.
I would say that's pretty much like the first thing you need to establish when you start dating someone. Hello, do you make your income from the black market? If so, perhaps we shall end this liaison now.
And that's not a spoiler, because we never find out what Stuart's job is.
I mean, maybe he just works at Blockbuster. He's ashamed to admit it. He's kind of a weenie.
I think this preceded the small period in human history where Blockbuster existed.
I guess people didn't really have home VCRs in 1981, did they?
No, not typically.
When was
no, what's her name in Skin Deep sure did.
Oh, yeah.
But she was an actress.
Yeah, I feel like it wasn't like a consumer item where you could go out and rent movies.
No, I remember in 88 or 89, my dad coming home from the video rental store with a VCR the size of a small car that you had to rent the VCR as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you read Calvin and Hobbes comics, Calvin's parents have to rent the VCR for him when he wants to watch a movie. It was involved.
That place, by the way, also rented Nintendos and Super Nintendos.
Sick.
So you could rent the Super Nintendo. You'd be like, well, I have my weekend booked. And it's like, dude, you're 12. Obviously, you have your weekend booked. But you're like, well, no. Here's what's going to happen. Super Nintendo, I'm going to rent this. I'm going to rent Super Mario World. And then I'm going to...
That's it.
Yeah.
There was no internet, so if you got stuck, you just had to brute force it.
Yep.
You couldn't rent the walkthrough at the same time.
Bring me chips.
Actually, if you're 12, it's like, bring me some gummy worms and a Slurpee.
Yeah. Anyway, the hell were we talking about? Oh, yeah.
Right. Stuart gets real mad because Magnum is tongue-kissing his wife.
Which is, fair play to Stuart. So he walks up, punches Magnum across the jaw. Magnum rights himself, and Stuart goes in for another punch, and Magnum grabs it. And I say to myself under my breath, I deserved the first one. And Magnum says, I deserved one. And I'm like, close enough. Yeah. I was pretty happy with that.
It was good.
By the way, he catches Stuart's fist.
And then, bends his arm backwards.
Very gently. There is very little effort being expended by Magnum in this move. He catches the fist and goes, no. And Stuart's like, it's this,
He doesn't make that noise.
No. Physically. That noise was the physical representation of what Stuart is doing in the scene.
Yeah.
And you're like, wow, Magnum has this guy.
Well, Magnum probably has 60 pounds on this guy, but not 60 pounds in kind of a hefty guy, 60 pounds of muscle.
across the arm, chest, and shoulders.
Well, I don't know. Magnum's quads are pretty good too.
Yeah.
All
And
that
then
swimming.
yeah. And then Magnum does the correct thing if you are ever caught in the middle of a cheating couple, which is he leaves and lets them argue about
He
it.
immediately pieces out.
Yeah.
He's like, call me.
Pro tip, don't get caught in that situation.
Yeah,
but if you are,
don't do that.
that's for them to discuss.
That's fair. It's not your business.
He says in the narration, my jaw hurt, but I deserved that. And we're like, yes, Magnum, you did. Good.
Don't ever do that again. And what I like about this is I was like, Magnum is acting stupid again. Grr. Because I don't like it when Magnum acts stupid because normally he's very smart. And then, but he says in his little like first person narration, he's like, I was acting dumb. And I'm like, thank you for acknowledging it. You know what? All sins forgiven. People are allowed lapses in judgment, and they are allowed to be like, wow, why did I do that stupid goddamn thing? Because they should normally know better, because everybody does that. But I don't like it when a normally logical character is just like, I'll just go over here and do this, doo-ba-doo-ba-doo, and like no awareness happens, right?
Yeah. I forgot to mention earlier, by the way, that while I was listing all of Ted Danson's many television roles, that while he doesn't appear in any other episodes of Magnum, Ted Danson and Tom Selleck would, of course, appear in the movies 3 Men and a Baby and 3 Men and a Little Lady.
Who's the third man? Is it like Steve Guttenberg or somebody?
You are correct.
Yeah! Trivia!
And it was.
Oh, I might ask that on my weekly quiz.
And who directed 3 Men and a Baby?
Ivan Reitman?
Leonard Nimoy.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, good for Leonard Nimoy.
Anyway, we get back to Robin's Nest, where Magnum has generously procured lunch for TC and Rick.
And it is awful, like, take out hamburgers and fries.
Oh, God, it looks like fairground food.
It's the kind of burger that you buy from a stand at a park that is hosting a Little League game.
Oh, yeah.
It is the food of necessity, not the food of choice.
TC picks up the patty and shakes it, and it looks like it's made of rubber.
Oh, it's just
and not like from a prop department way. It just looks like a real lame hamburger. Like, it looks like it was made in a toaster.
Yeah, TC's unimpressed. Rick is actually, like, mowing down.
As established, Rick likes stuff that tastes terrible. See that weird-ass blue smoothie?
That's true, actually. Rick has no taste buds.
Yeah.
Maybe this is like a running thing, is that Rick will just eat or drink anything.
Which is good for him because Magnum's really into convincing him to go on a date with Eunice, which he finally does by going, look, just have a drink with her, one drink at the King Kamehameha Club. If you don't like her, I'll take her home with me. And you're like, that's weird, but all right, whatever.
I mean, yeah, there's a little bit of deception here because TC's like, well, if she's so cute, why aren't you taking her out? And it's like, well, because she likes Rick.
Liar, liar. They are interrupted by Higgins, who comes in with another litany of phone messages.
And once again berates Magnum for having his phone disconnected and not paying the bill.
Which Magnum's like, I'm really certain I paid that one. Because Higgins is listing off that he still owes $8.50 for shirts at his dry cleaner. He's 60 days over the 30-day trial rental period of a tripod from the camera store. What was the rabbit joke? I think this was a reference that I didn't get.
Yeah, I have no idea. Apparently the rabbit had died, and Graham and I were like, okay. But TC and Rick were like, lol, 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 lol. I don't know. Is this an 80s joke? Is this a reference to an earlier episode that we've forgotten about? There haven't been any rabbits.
I don't know. I feel like this is a reference that maybe we just aren't getting. He says, a hysterical woman phoned me to tell you the rabbit had died. And the other two were like, ha ha ha. And you really, it feels like he's making some sort of joke.
Is he referencing a rabbit vibrator?
No.
Probably not on 1981 syndicated television.
I don't even know if they existed then.
You know what? I should ask Erica Moen. She seems like the expert.
Even if it would make it to syndicated television in 1981, I don't think Higgins would say that.
Well, I mean, he wouldn't know, so it's a joke.
I guess, yeah.
I don't know. Erica Moen, by the way, draws a comic called Oh Joy, Sex Toy. It is about sex toys and safe sex and sex education and sort of just generally being sex positive and informing you about interesting sexual related
a lot
information.
Of it is, it's like a webcomic form review of sex toys.
Yeah. But there's lots of other stuff too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a tangential to
I'm sure she
discussion.
can easily tell us that the rabbit did not exist in 1981. Higgins also volunteers the information that someone named Amy phoned and said that there'd been another accident. And Magnum's like, what did... and just takes off.
Yeah, he's just like, all right, later.
Rick is like, hey, Higgins, come on, have some food with us, and chucks him one of the styrofoam containers full of terrible-looking burger. And
Which,
Higgins
like,
just...
it pops open and it's so unappetizing. Like, I feel like there's a lot of set dressing here to make this burger look as foul as possible.
Oh, the inside of the styrofoam is just peppered with bits of ketchup. The fries don't even look fully cooked. Like, they look really like just raw wedges of potato. And Higgins just looks at it and then looks at Rick and then leaves wordlessly.
Oh, the timing on this is excellent.
It's
It's
very
really
good.
funny. So we cut back to Agatha's house.
I realize now we did these two scenes slightly out of order because we, of course, saw this accident, which is that Agatha was sitting in her yard near the pool, and someone, and you don't see who, someone walked up behind her and started pushing.
Yeah, you see a first-person view of her in her wheelchair, and then, like, plop right into the pool.
Yeah, and she's like, Stuart, Amy, Stuart, who is it? And she's like wrenching on the controls for her electric wheelchair, and it's not doing anything because whoever it is like disconnected it, and they push her closer and closer and closer and flump into the pool. But she's okay. Stuart is like, someone pushed her into the pool, and she's like, no, I tripped. It was my own fault. I rolled in. I was sitting too close, and I just tipped on in. And he's like, someone pushed her, and she's not admitting this. And Agatha's like, no, I'm fine. I want to talk to Magnum. Stuart, you can leave. And he's like, all right, sure. By the way, Stuart is not pleased to see Magnum, but he's like, well, it's not my house, so I can't really do anything. So they wander through the garden a little bit. She asks Magnum to push her around, and they're talking, and Magnum's like, so you got pushed into the pool. She continues to maintain that, no, that's not true. And he's like, look, all this stuff is happening. Clearly something is going on. And she's like, no, everything's fine. Amy told me that you showed her the picture. You know, at least you got the information from this man. And he's like, no, the man got killed, and Amy's not telling me something, and now I think that you're not telling me something. And she's like, no, just that's it. You're fine. You did what you needed to do. That's fine. Here's money for your services. Just go. And she gets really agitated.
Well, I feel like Magnum is on the verge of discovering something, and she is not interested in learning it.
Yeah. He goes back inside and talks to the sort of groundskeeper because he's looking for Amy. And the groundskeeper says, oh, she took the boat over to Maui? Over to one of the other islands. Mm-hmm. So Magnum leaves, and he goes over to TC, who's trying to repair his phone.
Phone's being a running sort of issue in this episode.
Yeah. He's like, no wonder you couldn't pick up the phone. It's in pieces. Well, anyway, take me over to the big island. I got to go there. And he's like, nope, no can do. I have to take the Mitchells to Maui at 3.
And Magnum's like, oh, you got loads of time then.
Yeah, it's great. And he's like, well, that's cool, Magnum. Do you have money? And Magnum sort of is like, well, look, here, I've got a 5 and some change. And here, this is gas money. And TC's like, no. And then Magnum's like, oh, wait, I was just paid. Hang on. And he opens up the envelope.
He literally hasn't even counted it yet.
Yeah, he opens up the envelope from Agatha and pulls it out. And it's a fat stack.
Yeah.
Are those supposed to be 50s or 100s? It's kind of hard to see.
I can't tell because all American money looks the same to me.
But Magnum's like, I thought it would be like $250, and this is clearly more than that. And TC's like, whoa,
this is probably a couple $1,000s if I had to guess.
Yeah.
TC just grabs it from him.
He grabs the whole stack and immediately takes like 3 or 4 bills off the top, rolls them up, and puts them in his pocket for outstanding debts, and then leaves the room holding the rest of the stack.
And Magnum's like trustworthy. But he's like, how much is in there? I didn't even count it, right?
Yeah. Hey, man, come on.
I like that there is a theme in this episode of TC and Rick actually not getting screwed over by Magnum's antics.
Yeah.
So TC actually gets paid for this trip and some outstanding debts get settled.
This one's actually pretty positive for the people involved.
Yeah. Next thing we know, we're in a helicopter and Magnum's trying to find that boat.
They're flying over a marina. He's got the binoculars. TC's like, I really need to get going because I have this other client. And Magnum's like, all right, look, if we can't go here, we'll go...
Yeah, take me to this address. It's the last permanent fixed address of the guy who got shot.
Freddie LaRue. Not his crappy forest house, but his actual home.
Yeah.
Which also involves, by the way, them setting down in the parking lot of the marina so that Magnum can ask for directions and then taking off again.
Oh, pre-iPhone days.
It's pretty funny. So then TC lets him down in the front yard of this place and then takes off. And there's another cool shot that would have involved having a cameraman lie on their back under this helicopter because it starts from black and then the helicopter lifts off the camera and the camera's completely underneath it. And it's like, well, that looks dangerous. Especially considering, let's not forget, a cameraman already died filming this show.
I mean, that's probably not the most dangerous helicopter stunt that you can do.
I would still feel nervous being under a helicopter.
I wouldn't be happy about it, no.
Yeah. It was handheld. You could tell. It was not just set there. Like, this camera was moving. Anyway, Magnum goes inside the house. The door's open and there's a bunch of boxes being packed up. And he's like, hello, hello, and looks around and can't see anything. And this woman comes up the stairs and is like, what the hell do you want? Are you another cop? What are you doing here? And he's like, oh, no, I'm looking for Amy Kimble. And she just goes sort of like, she has this expression on her face
Of like, what?
like, are you winding me up? She's like, Amy Kimble died 2 years ago.
Wah, wah,
Dun,
wah.
dun.
Well, I guess we know what Amy was hiding then.
So Magnum goes to the cemetery where Amy Kimble was buried. And who should be at Amy Kimble's grave but Amy Kimble? Her name's Carol. So the story goes like this. She and Amy the real Amy, were roommates.
Back in Texas.
And everything was great.
And after her mom died, she just gave up on life because she was an orphan then and got involved with bad people and started doing drugs. Yeah. I mean, she says that this girl ended up strung out. So it's like she's basically doing heroin and wasting her life.
Yeah.
But then
Magnum put Agatha in touch with Amy. And when Magnum phoned them in Texas the first time he got real Amy on the phone. But any other subsequent correspondence has been with Carol. And in fact, when Agatha would write letters, rather, to Amy, Amy could barely read. She was so strung out on drugs. But Carol really liked these letters and thought Agatha sounded like a cool person and really loved reading them and just loved the idea of having a family like that. And so she started to write back.
I mean, yeah, there's something like profoundly unfair that there's this nice old lady who's just writing to, reconnect with her granddaughter, and her granddaughter couldn't give a shit because she's into drugs, right?
Yeah, and
that's
so
really sad.
So Carol was like, "Well, I'll write back to this person. This will be nice. I'm enjoying this, and she'll get something out of it too, and it'll be great." And
Amy doesn't care.
Then when Amy got killed in a riptide, then Carol was like, "Well,
do I stop or
I can be Amy because Agatha's blind. I guess this will work." And she just assumed Amy's identity. And Magnum's like, "Oh, and I'm sure the inheritance didn't have anything to do with that." And she's like, "No, I don't give a crap about the money. I just love this woman.
I want a family.
I want this life. I want to be happy and be with this person, and this is great." The only thing that never gets established or addressed is why. Because apart from impersonating someone, Carol, Amy, seems like a good person. She really does. They sell that really well. Why did she marry Stuart? Because this guy seems like a sleazeball.
Think about the roommate situation she was in, and she knew, sometimes you just, have sleazy friends and are used to being around sleazy people.
And then you're just like, well, I guess we're getting married now. So Magnum, of course, is like, well, I believe you that you don't care about the inheritance.
Yeah, she was really clearly lying before about not knowing who that guy was.
Yeah.
But this, she is, clearly not lying.
And so Magnum says, well, then who could be caring about the inheritance? And you can tell she already knows what the answer is, but she's like, no, it can't be. That can't be. That's not the case. No, there's no way.
And Magnum's like,
it's obvious.
Really?
It's obviously Stuart, girl.
Girl, he's a scumbag.
They run back to the marina. They make a collect call under Robin Master's name.
It's a nice touch.
Magnum's phone is disconnected, even though he paid the bill, to Agatha, who's not picking up. And they're like, all right, we got to get back there. So they run back to the boat, and there's this really cool shot of them walking down the marina, and then you follow them through the windows of the boat, where it's actually less obvious than I thought they would make it. But if you're looking, you can clearly see that Stuart is hiding in the boat.
Well, you can see that someone is in the boat, and I'm like, gee, I wonder who that is.
Oh, I wonder who that is. So they open the door to the boat, and Stuart pops out with a gun. It's like, step off. Generic threats, sort of ineffectual. He's not a confident man.
No.
He tells Magnum to drive the boat, and they're going to go back there, and then he'll presumably deal with Magnum. Magnum takes advantage of a distraction from Amy to kick the gun out of Stuart's hand and into the water, and then they engage in a fist fight.
Magnum is doing good, but then Stuart grabs a
boat hook.
Yeah, like a novelty-sized fish hook, and sort of threatens Magnum.
He asks Magnum for the keys, to which Magnum responds by shoving Amy overboard and jumping in the water himself.
Yeah, and saying, bye. Right.
And then shouting, police, 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 because what's Stuart going to do on a boat that doesn't run with a boat hook and no gun? And so Stuart's like, oh, I didn't think this through at all. And then jumps on the dock and starts hoofing it.
Yeah, Stuart has not put this plan to a lot of thought.
Magnum and Amy pull themselves out of the water and start running after him. And luckily there was a police officer nearby, and a police officer is running the other way down this massive long dock.
It looks pretty suspicious for Stuart that he's threatening two people with a huge boat hook.
Yeah. So Stuart tries to run down a side dock and jump onto a passing boat to get away.
The name of which is Jesus Loves You, by the way.
Yeah. He does not make it to Jesus Loves You.
Well, it's a really far jump, to be fair.
Yeah, it's not a jump that he should have thought he was making, but he's desperate. And then through the series of shots that they always use on television when they don't want to show you something really disgusting happening, Stewart gets run over by boat propellers.
Jesus Loves You 1, Stewart 0.
When I talk about the cinematography, it's the thing where it's like shot of Stewart, shot of the boat, closer shot of Stewart, close shot of like the back of the back of the boat near the propellers with like a whoa, 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 and then shot of Magnum and Amy running up to the end of the dock and then both going oh and looking away and Magnum being like don't look, that sort of thing, and then looking back and then there's just like the boat and empty water. And,
There's no slick of blood on the water though.
but it's
That's
heavily
my
implied
complaint.
that Stewart ate it.
Yeah, Stewart gets run over by a boat due to his own incompetence.
Yeah.
And can I just talk about the fight scene is sort of shot from overhead. Like they clearly had like, because it's one of those 2-level boats where you have to drive on top. I don't know how many boats you've been on, but my dad loves going to boat shows and not buying boats. So I've been on a lot of boats in my life, sort of as one of those father-daughter bonding experiences. But so anyhow, so it's one of those kind of 2-level boats, a double-decker boat, I guess. A sky boat. I don't know what the technical
None of
boaty
those
term
are the
is.
name.
Anyhow,
It's just a boat.
so they have somebody, they clearly have the cameraman up there to like film the action. Ted Danson has like a noticeable bald spot.
Well, if you watch any of his other roles, he has his hair swept up and back always. He's got like big poofy hair.
What
up
about
front.
now in CSI? It's like
Same.
short.
No, but it's swept back.
Wow, so he just has like early male pattern baldness?
I guess it's not. It's clearly not big. Like clearly,
It's just like a thin spot.
yeah. It's. I don't think he ever went bald. I think it was just he very early went thin
It's
on
like
the crown.
It's like he got tonsured or something.
Sure. I don't know what that means.
It's like the monk thing
Oh,
where
sure.
they shave off. How do I know that and not what a 2-level boat is called?
Also, during this fight, or at least during the discussions after he grabs the boat hook, that exchange between Magnum and Stewart is shot from first person. Like first
Yeah.
person from Magnum looking at Stewart and then first person reverse. It's really interesting.
Somebody got a book labeled First Person Cinematography and You, and they're like, I'm going to use all of this.
Yeah. So we can't chalk this up on the consequence-free murder count because Stewart did this to himself, but the guy certainly is dead.
He almost consequence-free murdered the other guy, though,
Yeah.
LaRue. But that's not...
That's not Magnum's consequence-free murder.
No.
We're only counting when Magnum does it.
You know, I feel like we peaked early on that count.
Yeah, it was like 4 real quick and then nothing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's only a few more episodes left in the season, too.
Oh, we'll see how it goes.
Mm.
That's it for Stewart. That's the last that entire plot thread is dealt with.
It's
but
resolved.
that's, from a story perspective, that's not the most important thing that needs to be resolved. And the rest of it does get resolved, which is really nice.
Because, yeah, Magnum does tend to gloss over stuff that it's like, it all works out.
Yeah, we cut to the King Kamehameha Club with Magnum and Amy leaving, and she's like, I don't think I can do this. What if I don't know the right words? And Magnum's like, no, you'll be fine. Passing by Rick going in with Denise,
Who's super hot.
and Magnum's like, who's this? And Rick's like, oh, this is my date Denise. And Denise is like, yeah, Eunice had root canal work this morning and couldn't come out, so I'm taking her place. And Rick's like, man, Magnum, nice, thanks. And Magnum's like, yeah, that's great, huh?
No worries. I'm okay.
Oh, sure. And,
But yeah, Rick does not get screwed. TC doesn't get screwed. This is a rare episode.
and then Higgins comes through, and he's like, hello, Magnum, and goes inside. And Magnum's like, Higgins, isn't there something you wanted to say to me? And he goes, I'm sorry. About what? You did pay the phone bill. Oh, did I? Now, interesting. So why did my phone get disconnected? Because the dogs chewed through the line.
Oh.
And then he goes inside the club, and it's
Sort
like,
of.
wow, everything came up for everybody this episode.
Well, except Higgins.
Yeah. So we go back to Agatha's house. Magnum still is there, encouraging Amy, Carol, whoever, to do the right thing. And they sit down, and this scene is very sweet. It's actually very well acted. I found it quite affecting.
Yeah, it's carried by Agatha.
Amy is like, I'm not Amy. My name is Carol. I'm sorry. And Agatha's like, no, you're not my granddaughter by blood, but you're effectively my granddaughter, and that's what's important. And Amy's like, you knew? Did you know? And Agatha's like, look, Kimbles are always really good at piano, and girl, you just ain't got it. It's basically,
But in like a funny old lady kind
in a
of way.
funny, loving, sweet old lady way.
That's endearing.
Yeah, and now, of course, the name of the episode, Don't Say Goodbye, Agatha says, it's like, I don't care who you are or what you say to me. You could have told me this and everything would have been fine. The only thing you can never say to me is goodbye.
And it's so sweet.
It's so sweet.
And then they have a hug, and it's a genuine hug, and you're like, aw, everybody got what they wanted.
And then she's like, Magnum, come here, I need a hug as well, and don't you dare shave this mustache off, and they hug as well.
And everybody has a hug, and it freeze frames on a hug.
It's great.
It's so nice.
It's real nice.
It's a beautiful moment.
It is. It honestly is.
I mean, I feel like with a lesser actress, it would have been cringeworthy.
Yeah.
So, good job, casting department.
Mercedes McCambridge, Oscar-winning actress.
Yeah, well, if you need somebody to carry a heavy emotional scene, you may as well get somebody who's won an Oscar.
Why not?
It seems like a fairly good indication of quality.
Yeah. I liked this episode.
Yeah.
Certainly a vast improvement over the previous one.
Yes. Now, okay, what did I like about this episode? I mean, like, the writing in this episode is not great. It was, like, pretty obvious early on that Stewart was no good.
Yeah, that part was obvious. I wasn't expecting the real Amy Kimble is dead.
No,
that was cool. That, like, when the girl was like, Amy Kimble died 2 years ago, I was legitimately like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. I mean, it's
I figured
pretty
she had
clear.
some sort of like bad past or something. Like she was like a hooker or something, is what I was expecting.
Yeah, it was pretty clear that Stewart was not on the level, and that maybe something was up with Amy, but not necessarily in a way that implicated her super bad. I was thinking maybe I mentioned CSI because they always do the thing where like they introduce a totally minor character that doesn't matter at all really briefly in the beginning, and then you forget about them completely, and then at the end of the episode it's like, oh, it was obviously that guy. So I was expecting maybe the caretaker's involved somehow because he shows up once and then a second time later, and you're like, I don't know about that guy. But no,
that's not really Magnum style.
No, it's not Magnum style.
They just do that on CSI, so it's not completely obvious.
Yeah, but I liked some of the dialogue. I enjoyed the exchange when Amy was explaining to Magnum that it's the sort of the like, I'm not actually a bad person, even though I did a bad person thing.
Yeah.
Like I like that scene.
Well, she's too crummy of a liar.
Yeah, that's true.
To be a truly bad person. And I like that Stewart is foiled by his own incompetence, and they set up early that he is not actually as smart as he thinks he is, and he's not as intimidating as he thinks he is, and he's right. You know what I mean? Like, It's not a surprise.
Man, I just realized I'm glad I don't pay attention to the thumbnail images on Magnum Mania, because the thumbnail for this episode is Ted Danson holding a boat hook.
Oh, yeah. Well, it kind of gives it away.
Yeah.
So I like this episode.
I enjoyed it a lot.
I'll give it a 7.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, like I'm saying, it doesn't have to be perfect to get a good rating. It just has to not be cringeworthy.
I quite enjoyed Don't Say Goodbye. And next time we will be looking at The Black Orchid.
Oh, that sounds exciting.
Sounds like a Humphrey Bogart movie.
I wonder if Rick is involved.
Good point. Probably. Probably, yeah.
Is this going to go like a one good, one bad, one good, one bad?
I don't think so. We had a pretty good streak at the beginning, so
that's true. And this is the point in the sort of a season run where you bury the less good episodes.
Correct.
Right? You start off strong, you end strong, but sort of the nadir is sort of late middle.
Well, there's only 3 episodes left in the first season.
All right, so like we're getting into the good ones then.
Yeah. So that's it for this week. Thank you so much for listening. This podcast is brought to you by you on our Patreon, patreon.com/loadingreadyrun, where your monthly support lets us do all the things that we do, all the podcasts, videos, everything. Please check it out. Your support means a lot to us. And this is available on iTunes, on RSS, if you have your own RSS podcast reader that doesn't integrate with iTunes for some reason. And of course, also now on our YouTube channel. If that's easier for you to interface with in some way, then we have that there for you as well.
I mean, it's just audio only on YouTube, though.
Oh, yeah. It's not a video podcast.
Don't be expecting, us sitting around recording
looking
this.
Amazing, as we always do.
Well, I look incredible right now.
Oh, yeah. I am not wearing pajama pants.
We're not recording this in our living room.
No.
Anyhow, check it out on YouTube if that's your jam. And if you have friends who like TV, tell your friends, etc. Share it. Leave us a review on iTunes. That's very helpful. Etc., etc., etc. We'll see you next week.
Zeus, Apollo, stay away from the phone lines. Buy you a cell phone, for F's sake.
All right, so since we're at the house this week, here's my sign-off idea. Has to be the cat.
Okay.
Baxter, I need you to meow into the microphone.
That was one of our cats. Thank you for listening.